When I was a child, my name was Chip, and I used to play with light brights and speak in spells. Today, my name is Tao, and I play with ChatGPT and NotebookLM.
Welcome back to Beyond the Mirror of the Neural Dharma's Eye.
So welcome to Beyond the Mirror of the Neural Dharma's Eye. My name is Glenn Ostland, Tao Glenn Ostland, the second actually, and I've been podcasting since 2009. I have a Master of Arts degree in folklore and mythology and a Master of Science degree in clinical mental health counseling, and I love playing with AI to challenge my own perspectives of reality and see what more I can learn. Now, I created this podcast because this is the sort of thing that I like listening to, and I could tell you a lot more about that, but really,
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
I just want you to pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. I'd prefer to step aside and let the AI personalities from NotebookLM take it from here.
Hang on to them hats and glasses, cause this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
Welcome back, everyone, to Beyond the Mirror of the Neural Dharma's Eye, Volume 1, Episode 6.
Episode 6 already.
I know, right? Time flies.
It really does.
Well, for today's deep dive, we're going to be looking at truth versus fiction.
Ooh.
So get ready, because we're about to explore how these seemingly opposite forces
Yeah.
are actually intertwined.
Yeah.
And not just how they shape our understanding of the world, but the very evolution of life itself.
Absolutely.
And to guide our exploration, we've got some incredible thinkers lined up.
Okay. Awesome.
Hoffman,
Of course.
Brian Greene,
Love Brian Greene.
and even a little dip into the Kyballion.
Oh, so pure.
A little bit of that mystical wisdom thrown in.
I love it.
So yeah, get ready for some seriously mind-bending insight.
I am so ready.
Okay, so before we get too far down the rabbit hole,
Okay.
let's start by kind of defining our territory here.
Okay. Sounds good.
What do we actually mean by truth and
Right.
fiction?
Yeah, good question, because I feel like those terms get thrown around a lot.
They do. They really do.
And I think it's really easy to just take them for granted
Absolutely.
as, like truth equals facts, fiction equals made up stuff.
Right, exactly.
But I think there's a lot more nuance there.
I think so too.
So how about we start with truth?
Okay.
Like, what is truth?
What is truth?
I think kind of like a starting point, like most people's intuitive definition of truth is going to be something like objective reality, like the way things actually are,
Okay.
independent of us.
Independent of our perception.
Exactly. And then on the flip side, you've got fiction, which is like the realm of imagination, storytelling, make-believe.
Yeah, like novels, movies.
Exactly.
A good conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
But here's the thing that I think is really interesting.
Okay.
Even things that we consider to be true, like scientific theories,
Right.
and change.
They can evolve.
Yeah.
As we get new information, as our understanding of the universe changes, those truths can be refined or even completely overturned.
Yeah, so it's not as straightforward as we might initially think.
No, not at all.
So it kind of makes you wonder if maybe even our experience of reality is just like a useful fiction in a way.
Ooh, now you're getting into Donald Hoffman territory.
I am.
That's awesome.
I am.
I love it.
Because he really takes this idea and runs with it,
He does.
with his interface theory,
Yes.
which essentially argues that what we perceive as reality is more like a user interface created by evolution to help us survive,
Yes.
not necessarily to show us some objective truth.
Right. And it's like, it's kind of like, how we use icons on a computer.
Right.
They're not the actual files or programs themselves.
Right.
They're representations.
They're simplified representations
Exactly.
that help us interact with this complex system.
Exactly.
But they're not the thing itself.
Exactly. And so Hoffman's saying that our perception of reality is kind of like that.
Okay.
It's a simplified representation
Okay.
that allows us to navigate the world effectively.
So it's like a best guess constructed by our brains
Yeah.
based on what will help us survive.
Yeah, it's like a survival guide, essentially.
Yeah, that's wild.
It is wild.
And it kind of makes me question everything I see now.
Well, that's a good thing, I think, to question our assumptions, to not take things for granted.
Right.
Because I think that's really the first step to kind of like expanding our understanding of what reality might actually be.
Okay, so we've got Hoffman looking at this from a very biological, evolutionary perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Where does Brian Greene come into this?
Well, Brian Greene kind of takes us from the micro to the macro,
Hey.
from the inner workings of our brains to the vastness of the cosmos.
Okay.
And his work with string theory and the multiverse challenges our notion of a singular objective truth from a whole different angle.
Right, because the multiverse being this idea that there are countless other universes
Yes.
coexisting alongside our own.
Exactly. And so if that's the case, then what we perceive as real, what we consider to be our truth,
Right.
might just be one of many possibilities.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's like imagine you're looking through a keyhole
Okay.
and you think you're seeing the whole room,
Right.
but really you're only seeing this tiny little sliver.
You're only seeing a tiny fraction of what's actually there.
Exactly.
Wow.
And Greene's also big into quantum mechanics.
Right.
And that adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Oh, yeah. Quantum mechanics definitely does that.
Because the idea that particles exist in the state of probability
Okay.
until they're observed,
Yeah.
it suggests that reality might actually be influenced by observation.
So the act of looking at something could actually change what it is.
Yeah, it's a very mind-boggling concept.
That is mind-boggling.
Isn't it?
It really is.
Okay, and it really challenges our everyday understanding of a fixed objective reality.
It really does. Okay, so we've got Hoffman questioning the nature of our perception.
Yes.
Greene blowing our minds with the possibility of multiple universes.
Absolutely.
And even suggesting that observation itself might influence reality.
Right.
And now we're going to bring in the Kyballion. This ancient Hermetic text.
Yes.
How does this fit into all of this?
Well, the Kyballion comes at it from a very different perspective.
Okay.
It really emphasizes the mental nature of reality.
Okay.
One of its central tenets is this idea called the principle of mentalism,
Okay.
which states all is mind, the universe is mental.
So essentially everything that we experience, this whole universe, is a product of thought.
That's one way to interpret it, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, the Kyballion suggests that reality is fundamentally mental, a manifestation of thought or consciousness.
Okay.
So in this view, there's a sense in which everything we perceive is ultimately fictional,
Okay.
a creation of minds.
A creation of mind. That's fascinating.
Isn't it? Really is. Okay.
So you've got these three very different perspectives.
We do.
Hoffman focusing on the biological basis of our perception, exploring the vastness of the cosmos and the strangeness of quantum mechanics.
Right.
And the Kyballion emphasizing the mental nature of reality.
So they're all challenging our everyday notion of a singular objective truth.
But they're coming at it from these wildly different angles.
They are, and that's what makes this so interesting.
It really is.
You know, to look at all these different perspectives together
Yeah.
and to see how they overlap,
Right.
where they diverge.
Yeah.
It helps us paint this richer, more nuanced understanding of reality
Absolutely.
than if we just stuck with one perspective.
It's like they each have a piece of the puzzle,
Yes.
but none of them have the complete picture.
Exactly, and that's the fun part, is trying to put those pieces together.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And honestly, I'm blown away by how much our understanding of truth might be shaped by, our biology, our location in the cosmos,
Right.
and even the act of observation itself.
Yeah, it's really humbling, isn't it?
It is.
To realize that our grasp on reality might be a lot more tenuous
Yeah.
than we typically think.
Than we think it is.
And that brings us to another fascinating question.
Okay.
How has this whole dynamic between truth and fiction played out across the vast canvas of evolution?
Well, that's a great question.
Yeah, so let's rewind the evolutionary clock billions of years.
Okay.
And imagine those first single-celled organisms.
Okay. Way back.
Yeah, way back to the very beginning.
Okay.
Do you think something like fiction even existed for them?
I mean, I don't know.
It's a really interesting question to ponder, right?
It is.
Because for those early life forms, truth was probably a very immediate thing.
Okay.
It was about responding to basic stimuli in their environment,
Okay.
moving towards nutrients, moving away from danger.
So their reality was basically just like a very straightforward,
Yeah.
hardwired response to input.
Pretty much, yeah. There probably wasn't a lot of room for interpretation or, what we might call fiction.
Okay.
Truth was basically like baked into their biology,
Okay.
a direct line from sensation to action.
Got it.
But as life got more complex,
Yeah.
so did its relationship with truth and fiction.
Okay.
With the emergence of multicellular organisms, we start to see the first hints of something like fiction creeping in.
Okay. How's...
So think about an organism with light-sensitive cells.
Okay.
Moving towards light is generally a good strategy for finding food.
Right.
But imagine a shadow suddenly falling across its path,
Okay.
mimicking the approach of a predator.
Okay.
That organism might react as if there were a real threat,
Right.
even though it's just a harmless shadow.
Oh, so it's misinterpreting the information.
Well, exactly. And that misinterpretation, that's like a very basic form of fiction.
Right.
And even though it's based on kind of like a mistake,
Yeah.
it could still be beneficial for survival.
Because it's better to overreact to a potential threat
Exactly.
than underreact.
Exactly. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Right, exactly.
So even these very simple organisms are already starting to show this interplay between truth and fiction.
Wow.
And how even something that's not technically true
Yeah.
can actually have evolutionary advantages.
Yeah. So fiction isn't inherently bad.
Not at all.
It can actually be a very useful tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we go further up the evolutionary ladder, this interplay just gets more and more complex.
Okay.
Nervous systems develop. Animals can process information from multiple senses,
Right.
creating this richer experience of reality.
Okay.
But with that richer experience comes more opportunities for misinterpretation,
Right.
more room for fiction to sneak in.
More room for fiction. That's a great way to put it.
It is, and it gets really interesting as we move into the realm of mammals and play behavior.
Oh, yeah. Play.
Play, that's where things really start to get interesting.
Okay.
Because that's where we see fiction really taking center stage. So think about young animals playfully chasing each other or like mock fighting
Okay.
or pretending to hunt.
Right.
It's all about practicing essential survival skills, but in this safe environment.
So they're basically acting out these fictional scenarios.
Exactly.
But those scenarios are still like deeply rooted in the reality
Right.
that they're going to have to face as adults.
Yeah, it's like evolution is kind of recognizing the power of fiction as this tool for learning and development.
That's interesting.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, of course, you get to humans.
Yes.
And we take this whole storytelling imagination thing to a whole new level.
We do. We really do.
With abstract thinking and language, we can communicate not just about what is, but also about what could be, what might have been, what we wish would be.
We're storytellers.
Exactly.
We weave tales. We create myths.
Yes.
We share our hopes and fears.
And those stories, even the purely fictional ones, often carry these profound truths
Okay.
about human nature, about our relationships, about our place in the world.
It's like using a metaphor
Yes.
to get at something deeper.
Exactly.
Something that goes beyond just the literal facts.
Yeah, and fiction allows us to explore these complex ideas, emotions, moral dilemmas
Right.
in a safe, engaging way.
Yeah. It lets us step into other people's shoes.
Exactly.
Experience different perspectives.
Yeah.
Grapple with these difficult questions.
Yeah, it's like a flight simulator for the mind.
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
A flight simulator for the mind.
You can test out different scenarios.
Right.
Learn from the experience without the real world consequences.
That's a great way to put it. Okay.
And this ability to imagine, to create, to explore fictional worlds,
Yeah.
this becomes a defining feature of human intelligence.
Okay.
It allows us to plan for the future, anticipate consequences,
Mhm.
make decisions that shape our individual and collective destinies.
So if we kind of follow this evolutionary trajectory,
Okay.
where do you think our relationship with truth and fiction is headed?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is, especially with all of the advancements that we're seeing in technology today.
Right, because the lines are already getting blurry.
They really are.
In our digital world.
Yes.
Think about the internet,
Oh, yeah.
where information, misinformation, outright fabrication are all just swirling together.
It's like this constant fire hose of information.
It is.
And it's hard to know
Right.
what to trust.
And it's only going to get more intense as technology keeps advancing.
So do you think future generations will even view truth and fiction the same way that we do?
You know, that's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Because I think growing up immersed in this world where information is constantly being manipulated or remixed, recontextualized,
Right.
they might develop this more fluid understanding of truth.
Okay.
You know, they might be less likely to see things as black and white
Okay.
and more comfortable with shades of gray.
So instead of searching for absolute certainty,
Yeah.
they'll be more comfortable with ambiguity.
Exactly. And recognize that truth is often a matter of perspective.
That's a pretty radical shift in thinking.
It is, but I think it's one that we might be heading towards, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I think so too.
And it's not just the internet that's blurring these lines.
Right.
Artificial intelligence AI is also rapidly changing the landscape.
It really is. I've seen some of those AI-generated deepfakes,
Oh, yeah.
and they are so realistic. It's kind of scary.
It is. It is.
So how are we even going to be able to tell what's real and what's fabricated.
Right. And that's going to be one of the biggest challenges, I think, moving forward, is developing these new tools and strategies for verifying information, for ensuring authenticity.
Because if we can't tell what's real, then what's for
it?
It's like the whole foundation of our understanding of the world starts to crumble.
And what happens then?
Yeah.
It's a very unsettling thought.
Do you think AI will ever become so advanced that it can create its own fictional worlds?
Ooh.
Like complete with characters and narratives?
You know, it's not outside the realm of possibility.
It's not.
It's already being used to generate storylines for video games.
Okay.
Even to compose music.
Right.
So as AI becomes more sophisticated, who knows?
Yeah.
It could create entirely new forms of art and entertainment.
Right. And it could blur the lines even further.
Exactly.
Between human creativity and machine-generated content.
And it raises all these questions about, what does it even mean to be creative?
Right.
What does it mean to be conscious? What's the role of humans in a world where machines are becoming increasingly capable of mimicking and maybe even surpassing our abilities?
Yeah, those are big questions.
They are, and they're questions that we need to be having now while these technologies are still in their early stages, because it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how we choose to use it, the values that we embed in its development.
Absolutely. Okay, so speaking of mind-bending technologies, where does quantum computing fit into all of this?
Ah, quantum computing.
Yes.
Now there's a technology that could really turn our understanding of reality on its head.
Because I've heard it described as like harnessing the power of parallel universes to solve problems.
That's a pretty good analogy.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does, but it's quickly becoming science fact. You know, quantum computers are already being used to tackle complex problems in fields like medicine materials, science cryptography.
Okay.
But beyond those practical applications, quantum computing also has these profound implications for our understanding of truth and reality.
So
Well, remember how we talked about the multiverse?
Yes.
The idea that our universe might be just one of many coexisting realities?
Right.
Well, quantum computing might give us a way to peek into those other realities.
Really?
Yeah.
So we could actually experience them.
Potentially.
Wow.
It's still early days.
Right.
But the possibilities are mind-boggling.
They are.
Imagine being able to step into a quantum computer
Okay.
and explore a reality where history unfolded differently.
Wow.
Or where the laws of physics are slightly altered.
Yeah.
It would completely transform our understanding of truth.
It would.
It would make us question everything we thought we knew about reality.
It would be like the ultimate choose-your-own-adventure game.
Exactly.
But with real consequences.
Right, and that raises a whole host of ethical considerations.
Oh, yeah.
If we have the power to explore and maybe even manipulate other realities,
Right.
what are our responsibilities?
That's a big one.
It is a big one.
Okay, so it seems like every technological advancement we make,
Yeah,
it just pushes us closer to the edge of what we thought was possible
it does.
and blurs the lines between truth and fiction even further.
Absolutely. And it's both exhilarating and humbling.
It really is.
To be alive at this time, to witness these transformative technologies unfold,
It is.
and to participate in shaping the future they create.
Yeah. But before we get too carried away with the future, let's
Okay.
bring it back to the present.
Sounds good.
What are some practical ways that we can apply these insights about truth and fiction to our own lives here and now?
Well, I think one key takeaway is to cultivate this healthy skepticism towards information.
Especially in our digital world.
Especially in our digital world, because we're bombarded with so much content.
Right.
From so many sources.
Yes.
It's essential to pause and ask ourselves,
Yeah.
who created this information?
Okay.
What are their motives? What biases might they have?
It's like we all need to become detectives.
We do.
Examining the evidence.
Exactly.
Before we draw any conclusions.
Don't just accept things at face value.
Right.
Dig deeper, ask questions, consider alternative viewpoints.
So it's about embracing curiosity.
Yes.
Questioning our assumptions.
Absolutely.
Being open to the possibility that we might be wrong.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And another practical application is to recognize the power of stories,
Okay.
both fictional and non-fictional, because stories help us make sense of the world, connect with others, explore different perspectives.
Stories have this amazing way of bypassing our rational defenses,
Yes.
and speaking directly to our hearts and minds.
They really do. So embrace the power of storytelling.
Okay.
Read novels, watch films, listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Immerse yourself in different worlds. Allow yourself to be transported.
Because truth and fiction,
Yes.
they both have value,
Absolutely.
and they can work together to enrich our lives and expand our understanding.
Exactly. And as we've discussed, the line between the two is often blurred.
Right.
What we consider truth is always filtered through our perceptions, our beliefs, our cultural context.
So be open
Yes.
to different interpretations.
Yes.
Recognize that there might not always be a single right answer.
And that's such a valuable lesson, I think, especially in today's world,
It is.
where we're confronted with all these competing narratives and polarized viewpoints.
Yeah.
It's about embracing ambiguity, acknowledging uncertainty,
Right.
and recognizing that the search for truth is an ongoing journey.
It is.
It's not a destination.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
It's about staying curious, staying open-minded, recognizing that the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know.
And that's okay.
Exactly. That's okay.
Oh, it's okay.
And that sense of wonder,
Yeah.
that humility in the face of the unknown, that's what keeps life fascinating.
It really does.
It fuels our desire to learn and grow.
It does. It really does. And as we kind of wrap up this incredible deep dive,
Yeah.
what advice would you give to our listener out there who's trying to make sense of all of this
Right.
in their own life?
Yeah, because it can feel overwhelming, right?
It can.
All this information, all these
Yeah.
different perspectives.
How do we stay grounded
Right.
and make wise choices
Yeah.
when the line between truth and fiction feels so blurry?
Well, I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier,
Okay.
about cultivating that healthy skepticism
Right.
and being mindful of our own biases.
Okay.
You know, we need to be aware that we all have these filters
Right.
through which we perceive the world,
Okay.
shaped by our experiences, our beliefs, even our emotional states.
So recognizing that we're not objective observers,
Exactly.
that we're always coming to things with our own baggage, so to speak.
Yeah, we all have our own lenses. And I think once we acknowledge that,
Okay.
we can start to question our assumptions,
Right.
challenge our own beliefs,
Okay.
be more open to perspectives that differ from our own.
So it's like a practice in intellectual humility,
It is.
recognizing that we don't have all the answers
Yeah, and being okay with that.
and being okay with it.
Because none of us do.
We don't.
And I think that's such an important starting point
It is.
for navigating this complex world.
Especially in a world that feels increasingly divided. If we can hold on to that sense of humility,
Yeah.
that openness to being wrong,
Mhm.
it might help us bridge some of those divides,
I think so too.
find some common ground.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity, that we're all in this together.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're all trying to make sense of this world,
Yeah.
even if we come at it from different angles.
It's a good reminder
It is.
that even amidst all of the uncertainty,
Yeah.
all of the complexity, there's still so much wonder and beauty.
Absolutely. And I think that's something we should never lose sight of.
We shouldn't.
That sense of wonder,
Yeah.
because that's what drives us to explore, to question, to learn, and to grow.
What a fantastic note to end on.
I think so too.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive
It's been my pleasure.
into the fascinating world of truth and fiction.
Always a fun topic.
It is. And to our listeners out there,
Yes.
we encourage you to keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep embracing the wonder of it all.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Mirror, the Neural Dharma's Eye, Volume 1, Episode 6,